Welcome to the first ever episode of the West Seas Guild podcast. That was some music, and this is some talking. With me, my co-host today is Nick. I'm not going to describe him any further. You know him. His name is Nick, and he's here with me today. Nick, how are you?
Hey, I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me.
That's great. I know it was a lot of. I had to pull a lot of strings to get you on the show.
Yeah, but you can make it up to me.
Please don't elaborate. Okay. So again, this is our first ever attempt at this medium. Is there anything you'd like to say to start out with your podcast hosting life?
Wow, really throw me right in there. Nope. No, I think it'll be good. I think this will be a good way for anyone who is in the WSG or wants to be in the WSG to kind of keep along with things, and it should be fun.
Yeah, and the idea is that, hopefully if we end up having to bring in another host from time to time, we'll work on that. But the idea is that we have all these games that go on, and, most people aren't in most games. So
right.
This is a chance for us to sort of catch up on what's been happening and, and anything else interesting that happens in the guild.
Yeah, and hopefully creates more interest and get some more games going, and that's always good too.
Yeah. So we'll kick it off with kind of a broader topic. The guild celebrated its 2-year anniversary.
Huzzah!
Huzzah! I guess it was sometime early last month, towards the beginning of last month. James always does a good job of keeping track of. I say always. Twice he's kept track of it.
Yeah, that's better than the rest of us.
Better than the rest of us. So, yeah. So a nice little heads up that we had an anniversary.
Yeah, if anyone, he's definitely the West Seas Guild secretary. So that's props to you, James, as well.
Yeah,
James as well.
James is a dick.
Yeah, that guy. I hate that guy. I hope we don't actually have any James in our group.
Yeah, I mean, we'll make sure to send this podcast to the James that we're talking about.
Okay,
so that he knows that he's a dick.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but we had the anniversary last year and this year. It's mostly a role playing sort of event where we do a lot of typing in the bar and in the other role play channels. This year, the event was shortly after a traumatic experience for your main character. So Papa was kind of a non-participant in the activities.
Yeah, that's true. Popo/Papo was still feeling a little bit down after being basically murdered by a jester of sorts. So yeah, he wasn't very feeling much like celebrating an anniversary. If anything, it made him feel more the mortality of life and how crazy this island can be sometimes. I think we all remark on that from time to time. But I do want to say that out of character, it's pretty awesome that this has lasted 2 full years, and I gotta tell you, it's like one of the best groups that I've ever been a part of. And I'm really happy that people have gotten on board and even doing RP celebrations. Varric / whatever his characters' names are did a great job in that room. And I think if we even thought about it, just a couple more days extra, there would have been a lot more cool activities planned and role playing planned. And as there was plenty. I think if we do any more, I think it would be a good idea to maybe make almost like a holiday kind of thing, every couple months or so, there's a celebration of this on the island, and do some cool role playing. I know we've had good events with fishing competitions and quote unquote open mic nights at the bar. So
right.
It was always pretty fun.
Yeah, no, I was thinking, when you said like holidays, I was kind of thinking about um, in when I played World of Warcraft, and you played it as
Yeah,
well. Like they have their events every month or so, I think. Of Christmas and Brewfest and whatever the thing is with the
the,
orphans and
the Dark Moon Fair and stuff like that, and
yeah,
all these good things. Yeah, yeah. No, so definitely something like that would be interesting, especially coming up on holidays. I mean, Halloweenish coming up soon, and Christmas and all that good stuff. So that would be nice to get something going for the WSG. But back to this one, even though Popo wasn't so involved, there's still a ton of RP going on. We had 2 separate bar chats, which I thought was pretty sweet. Like the fact that we had too many people in there, we had to do a second bar chat. And and James made up those special little drinks to give people out too, which was kind of a nice little.
oh, that's right.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't even.
yeah,
I have that. I never
yeah.
added it to my character sheet. I have to remember
Well,
to
that
do it.
was dumb. I drank mine that night just because I figured, why
Yeah, no, it
not?
was a good. It was a fun little moment.
Yeah. And it was kind of interesting, some of the games that Varric, I know Malachi and his characters were playing, using different abilities to try to make things work. And when they failed, it was even better.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of that's sort of a hallmark of D&D is when things go wrong, that's usually when the story's better. When
Oh
something
yeah,
cool happens. Yeah, but overall, it was a good event, like you said. Very enjoyable for I think for everybody. Um, and yeah, maybe we'll try to, like you said, try to do some more prompted role playing as opposed to waiting for people to come up with their own events and whatnot.
yeah. I think it helps, get people in the spirit. Like some people are like, oh man, I want mine role playing, but I want someone, just need a little push or something.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. So that was the West Seas Guild anniversary party. There are no pictures because this is
Was
it's a fantasy world. There's no pictures.
What about you though? Whatever happened to Kovat and Fume? I know Kovat was there for a little bit, giving Popo some crap.
I think I had work that night, so
Oh,
I was participating as much as I could, but it was yeah. I mean, basically, it was I had the time to sit with
good.
Popo, and that was about all I had.
You couldn't tell your boss you had a holiday? You had to take off for the holiday?
I guess not. Like I said, I don't remember exactly, but I think that's what was going on.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so into the meat and potatoes of
Let's talk about some games.
our podcast here. Yeah, we're going to talk about some games. The first game was a doozy. The adventure was called Missing Persons. The DM was Malachi or Hecadus. I've actually never said that out loud. I don't know if that's how you say it.
Hecatus?
Hecadus?
I don't know.
Malachi.
Malachi.
Yeah. And the adventure was designed for lower level characters. I was a player in this game with my character Fume. The other participants were Taz and Big Mama Sal. That's not his name. What's his name? Camilla.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And Milo was kind of a focal point
Milo.
there.
Always a good one.
I think there was another play. Was it just 4? Maybe it was just 4. Oh, and what's his name? Tom. Tom was in that game. Yeah, so it was a 5-man group, and yeah. So the since I was in the game, I'll give a quick synopsis of what happened. We took a boat on over to a kind of a pirates sort of town. The way it was described kind of reminded me of the town in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
Not well, yeah. I guess the Tortuga, kind of
Right. The Isle of Tortuga.
the rough and tumble location where anything goes. There's no real law.
It's a mystical place.
Sure. So we did some investigating, trying to figure out as the title indicated, there were some people who had gone missing. We had some kind of chasing our tails a little bit, trying to find some leads about some of these people who had gone missing. And eventually we ended up in this bakery that had these remarkable cakes. And one of Fume's abilities is that he can cast Detect Magic with, without having to, like, at will, anytime he wants, without having a spell slot. So he had done that to look at these cakes, and they had emanated some necromantic energy, which he was less. He's like, well, I don't know, necromancy. Like, there's some healing stuff that has to do with necromancy, like resurrection spells have to do with necromancy. The rest of the party was pretty sure that place was trouble, and spoiler alert, it was. But so we had left the bakery, and we had talked to a couple of orphans that had been roaming around town, and they had reported that one of the kids that had gone missing, one among that list of people who had gone missing when they were playing hide and seek. So Fume had the idea, well, why don't we play hide and seek and see what happens? And
a great idea.
A great idea, yes. And so the way it played out was that Fume and I want to say Camillo. Fume and Taz, I think, went with one of the kids. Two of the kids had sort of tugged on Milo's shirt because he had been, Milo's a very friendly spirit, and he had seemingly endeared himself to these kids.
I'm getting a little bit of a danger sense of that.
And I have to give Malachi credit. I like the way he played it out. I was not like, it didn't even occur to me that there was something untoward happening. So Camillo and Tom were the seekers in this game of hide and seek. And what happened was that Milo, and obviously because we're all in the game, listening to what happened, Milo saw Camillo and Tom coming up to his hiding place with these two orphan girls. But they were not Camillo and Tom. They were some sort of shapeshifters, which was scary enough. And then it turns out that the two orphan girls were also shapeshifters. So Milo was kind of in a pickle. So he got felled, I think, before he could do anything. Just by being set up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so eventually the other four of us, along with the one orphan kid who had come with Fume and Taz, we reconvened at this wagon where they had been hiding. We found some clues, followed the clues as best we could, went back to the bakery, and we heard, I think, singing at the bakery. It was singing. It was some
ominous.
It was some bastardized version of the Muffin Man song.
Oh, that's great! Seriously, that's great.
So we ended up forcing our way inside the building. I can't remember how, but I think it was hilarious. And we ended up making our way down to the basement of this place where the singing was coming from. There was a large group of obvious doppelgangers, along with Milo, who was on a table, but did not have any legs.
Like you do.
And it had become clear that the Muffin Man was capturing these missing people, and all around the room there were people in cages, and the Muffin Man, for some reason, I'm not we didn't have a long discussion with him about what was going on.
Right.
But I guess they were eating people. That was the thing. So turns out those cakes with the necromantic energy maybe should have been more of a red flag than I gave them credit for. But we engaged in combat. Our party did pretty well because we hadn't really been in a fight prior to that, so most people still had plenty of resources to expend. Taz was a monster. He was a tank and a damage dealer, all wrapped in one. Tom was a big time single target smasher. Fume, I think, was mostly focused on crowd control, kind of slowing people down and creating advantageous situations. And Camillo was dropping moonbeams, as Camillo do. And we were successful. We were able to rescue the remaining survivors from the cages, and we brought Milo back to Anyport and convinced someone to regenerate his legs.
I think it was Kovat, wasn't it?
It was not Kovat. Kovat does not have... He can't cast level 7 spells.
Oh, it might have been Malachi.
I think it might have been Malachi.
Yeah.
I think that they asked Larissa, and Larissa was role-playing that she didn't care that much, and Malachi was like, I'll just do it.
That sounds like Malachi, and that sounds like Larissa.
Yeah, well, I think also it was his game, so he was like, I did this.
He may have felt a little bit bad.
I mean, it's possible because there was some quiet time between Malachi and Glaylan, the guy who runs Milo. So they may have agreed that hey, is it cool if we do this? I don't know, but regardless of how it went down, it was a fun game. It gave some stories for all these characters.
And Glaylan definitely seems like the guy that would be totally cool with that because, hey, that's what happens. Shit, stuff happens, and I almost said shit. By the way, I don't know if we can say shit in this podcast, but I'm gonna say it 3 times right now.
Shit. Yeah.
Well, now you said it 3 times.
Whoa. What's wrong with you?
I'm not trying to celebrate here. Just trying to say it. Anywho, he definitely seems like the kind of guy that definitely roll with that kind of thing. I know me personally, I can get upset about some things too. You get a little attached to your characters, but it's kind of cool when you realize that A, shit can happen, and B, it might be able to be fixed.
Right. I'm just toggling the explicit. But that was the adventure. It was fun. We got some interesting stuff, including some more of those cakes, which nobody else wanted, but Fume was like, I'll take them.
Yeah. Which brings me to Fume. I love your character, Fume, by the way. I think he's well made, very much fits the personality of A, you, and B, the character. Some kind of perfumer, right? What are you going to call that?
Yeah, I call him a perfumancer. He's
Yeah. It's done really well. So
I'd like to play more with him, but with the because I have 2 characters I really like to play. It's
it's tough.
It's tough. But yeah, it was nice to get to play with him, and it was a super fun game. So thank you, Malachi, for running a really fun game.
Yeah, thanks, Malachi. It sounded pretty awesome. I know there was a lot of people talking about it afterwards, and especially with Milo losing his legs and going back. And I love how Glaylan RP'd him wobbling afterwards and walking on his fresh legs. So that's always a lot of fun. It sounded like it was a lot of fun and interesting way. I'm positive Malachi did not know that's how the game was going to go. Let's play hide and seek. But to be able to roll with that and incorporate it is one of the best parts of D&D and good DMs and stuff like that. So it sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it was. I think everything turned out pretty well for everybody involved. We will move on now to a game where that was not quite the case.
Oh, really?
This will be more your storytelling since I was not a participant in this.
Mm-hmm.
The game was called Why's All the Rum Gone? And it was
indeed.
It was run by our longtime builder, DM, etc.
He's more than that now, right? Elder.
Oh yeah, I think he's an elder now. For now.
He is.
No, I'm kidding. Varric was our DM here. So relay the story. Tell us what happened.
Well, so the game was set up because we had our big anniversary coming up. Thanks for the cough, Joe.
I actually muted myself, so it's going to sound ridiculous, like you didn't.
Okay. I gotcha.
So,
Anywho, yeah, so we had this big celebration coming up for the second anniversary of the West Seas Guild in Anyport in Founders Island, and lo and behold, we find that all the rum's gone. And we're like, we can't have a celebration without all the rum. Come on, guys, let's figure out what happened.
makes sense to me.
So a group of us got together. It was a higher level character. It's a game for higher level people, and it was told to us before that no punches were going to be pulled. This could be pretty deadly. But us being pretty much the most arrogant people in the world,
Right.
decided that it's no problem for us. So it was Leon, who was one of Brandon's characters, Veros, who's one of Veros's characters, Popo, one of my guys, Galen, that was there as well, and that might be it. It might be one other though too.
It says, I'm looking at the thing here, Kelkin?
I should have looked at that thing there. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, well, it didn't last very long, so yes. So we went to the docks to kind of see what's up. We were meeting some people there and kind of see what happened, and so we were on the docks and we made our way. Kalkin noticed there was a guy down the other end of the docks, and he made his way out there to talk to him. I can't remember the guy's name. It might have been Kelvin or Eric, one of Eric's guys that he makes up. And he's like, I have a ship. Where I know kind of what's up. Let's go out there and try to find this other ship. And they took the rum and yada, yada, yada. We'll figure it out. It's something even more worse than rum, but we'll figure it all out. So we all go on the ship. So it's a water adventure, and obviously Popo's excited because Popo also is a sailor background. So, he knows how to navigate. He's used to being part of a pirate gang for a while, so he's cool out in the water. Again, no reason why we're all not arrogant as hell is basically what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
We all have lots of abilities and magic items. Everything's great. Okay. Fast forward to we do come across a ship, and we get out on deck and we kind of we come across some undead on the other ship on the deck, and we're not that frightened of undead. They don't seem to be too menacing. They have a couple captives as well. Looks like they're in the process of turning them undead. So we we got to hurry up. We got to get over there. So we start our battle. And everyone's anxious to get over there, but we have to go from one ship to another ship. Not a problem for some of us. Some of us can fly. Kelkin can turn into an air elemental. So mostly it's pretty good for everyone except for Galen. So Popo's first action was to take a rope over there to kind of bind the two ships together so that Galen can easily make it. Because I know him. He can make it across some rope.
Sure.
Foreshadowing to maybe he can't. But anywho, so we go across, and lo and behold, we see this. As we're kind of, Varus is across now and Leon's across, and they're taking care of some of these lower-ish level undead, some things come to pop out of the water. Turns out it's a couple of sea dragons, and there's a thing riding on one of them. Looks to be, I guess it's called a grim jester of sorts, but he is an undead jester who is not very nice. So, first thing he does is puts Popo into a uncontrollable laughter, worse than even Tasha's hideous laughter. He's just done. He's on the ground laughing. He can't help himself.
Mm-hmm.
Galen, who was on the rope trying to cross at this time, he gets knocked off. He falls into the water. So it's going well, if you can tell. Turns out those prisoners weren't actually prisoners. They're more undead. So Varus is now trying to take care of those. Kelkin's over there as well. Brandon is just trying to, keep everyone up and at him and do his thing. Round 2 comes across, and Popo fails his save against that hideous laughter, and he is just unconscious. He had a con save to make, or else he'd be unconscious, and so that's it. He went from full health to unconscious like that, and I was shocked, and then now a little bit nervous, a little bit worried for Popo's safety.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So, Glealan does some things. He gets up and at him. I think even Leon or Kelka might have helped him get up. Veros is getting just beat on by a bunch of different kinds of undead. I think some of them are the liches or something like that may be like draining him or something. It's not a lot of fun for sure for him. And this jester just keeps laughing at us and making puns and basically anything we try to do, he turns it against us, including Leon trying to heal Veros. Turns out that the Grim Jester can make any kind of healing nearby him turn into damage. So when you try to heal Veros, you actually knocked him unconscious, like you do. So that was also fun. Things went to crap very, very much literally and figuratively. Mostly just figuratively.
Yeah, not really literally.
Well, I hear when you die, you might shit yourself. That kind of happens, right?
That's true, I guess.
Yeah. So, Brandon, Leon, the character of Brandon's, always has a pretty good get out of jail free card. It's this thing where he gets to teleport him and up to so many allies, 4 or 5, to a quote unquote paradise. And you can stay there for so many days. And then when it's over, you come back to right where you were. So Brandon's like, this is not going well. I had gotten brought back up, but got unconscious again quickly because we hadn't even killed any of the main bad guys. The 2 Sea Devils were alive and the Jester was alive. We took care of a bunch of the lower level undead. So it was not going well for us. And this is very, very shocking because normally even if things go poorly, we always do well in the end. Mm-hmm. So he decides to pop his get out of jail free card. Now, here's another interesting fact that thank God Brandon was there, else I would have been dead. The Grim Jester can switch places, basically like, shapeshift into anyone around him. So he took the place of Popo. But because Brandon, being the crazy, shifty warlock that he is, has true sight up to 30 feet or whatever it is, he was able to tell which one was the real Popo, and he took the real Popo and not the Grim Jester to Paradise.
Nice.
They would have handled that guy fine in Paradise, but I was really worried how Popo would have gotten out of that.
Right.
So after that happened, we healed up, went back. That ship was gone, but we were able to catch up with the other ship and basically sail back to any port whole, but maybe with some bruised egos and no rewards. So it happens every now and then. You get these failed missions, and they're good. They kind of teach you some things. Sometimes you learn something. Sometimes it's just maybe a little too much for what the group can handle. Mm-hmm. I think there are always lessons to be learned. One, we were pretty arrogant as we usually are. But yeah, I think sometimes you just have to meet. You're not used to any of these characters, so sometimes these bad guys are things you've never seen before. You don't know what they do. You don't know how to best handle them. Oh, there's also sometimes some unluck. One of the things I forgot to mention: these sea dragons, like normal dragons, do have a breath weapon. I think it was like a frost one where it went into a line.
Okay.
And they recharged like every round.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of poor luck rolling against those. So that was also another bad omen for the game.
Right. Yeah, that definitely can be, sometimes the dice are just going to be against you.
Yes, that is very accurate. One thing I do want to say about this, though, is I think that another reason we may have been, quote, unquote, unprepared or arrogant is we're so used to, you might have some kind of like preparatory battle before some big eventual final confrontation. And I really like how Varric, and I know you too, Joe, have done this, where it's not always that case with you guys. You might have had the main battle up front, and then, or technically boss battle up front, and then you just have some clearing out waves after that, or something else. And I think it is good to mix that up so that not everyone just, let's just hold our resources for the boss battle,
Yeah, right. My 11-hour Minds of Madness game.
Yeah.
Where the boss battle was at the beginning. I mean, I guess there was a purple worm underground.
Right. Well, you didn't have to fight him. You can get him away. Right, that's more like an encounter than you have to fight this dude.
Right. But yeah, that was I mean, I had fun in that game, but that was something else. That was way too long.
Right. And as far as like the game goes, obviously anytime, I think, people get excited to play D&D. It did suck to get knocked unconscious from full health at second round into the battle. But that's what happens. You got to be prepared for stuff like that to happen.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, your enemies are always going to have abilities too. So if they have good ones, sometimes it's gonna, if the dice are unfriendly, you're gonna have a bad time. I did have a question. How long, if you remember, was the actual playtime in the game?
It ended up being pretty long, maybe about 3 hours.
Oh, okay,
and it's yeah. Mostly because, well, one, we did go to this paradise, then we had to decide what we were going to do. When we got back, we were in the middle of water. The boat had moved, because you end up right where you where you were.
Right.
So we had to find different ways to swim back to the boat or fly back to the boat. It wasn't a problem for most of us, but we had to figure out how Leon was going to get back, and then actually get back. Different things like that. Plus navigating the boat, different. And these are all things that I like. I like it when you have to do lots of different things and use your abilities in different ways than just battle. I mean, battles are great. Just because that right. I love being powerful sorcerer and being able to destroy things. But it's fun to do other things as well. So the actual playtime was quite long.
Okay, well that's good. Yeah, because I think I was traveling. I think that was the weekend I was at a wedding, and then we had our high school reunion that night. So I wasn't in the game, and I just heard that everything went to shit in the first battle, and I was like, oh man, I hope they actually got to play D&D, because that would be frustrating if you all together set aside the time. It's we played for an hour, and then we had to run, so we just stopped.
And honestly, I mean, there was nothing stopping us if we wanted to probably try to find the ship. I mean, there was a ship. We were maybe there for a couple hours, so we might have been able to try to track it down. But I know Popo, for one, was having none of that after that battle. He was like, you know what? I don't. This is crazy. And some of the others, I think, may have been more inclined to go after them. But I know Popo wasn't. I was just like, let's just get back to town. And I was trying to also think, what would he do? In that situation. It's tough to, kind of figure out what your character wants to do as opposed to what you as a player want to do.
Yeah, right. I mean, it sounds like you, that makes sense. Where Popo's confronted with his mortality, and he says, "You know what? I'm going home, and we're going to figure this out later."
Yeah, I mean, there's lots more people. That's the one thing about these battles. It's kind of like these superhero movies. You see these not the main Avengers one, but you'll see Iron Man. It's like, wait a minute, there's only 3 of them. Where's everyone else? That's us. We're in group of 4 or 5 when there's 20 people back home. So in actuality, Popo would be let's go back to town and tell everyone so we can all prepare for this eventual. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. This jester has a master, of which he mentioned right. in the
so he's not
encounter.
Even the big guy.
No, he has a master he follows, which might be even a god, like the god of death or something. Right. So yeah, it could get bad for any port, more so than it already has, I guess. Any day now.
I was looking over some of the results, and I was reminded. So a thing that Varric sometimes does is not make posts about games.
Okay.
Because there are actually 2 other Varric games that took place in September that you and I didn't talk about before we started this. Right.
But I know them, yes. I was in both of them.
Yes, and I was in one of them with you. So we can start with that one. And we'll just kind of run through it quick. It was a fun game. I don't remember. I mean, obviously it didn't have a name because it never got posted.
Well, these are his bounty quests. That's what he calls them. And they're usually, the reason why there's no posts, they're usually kind of last minute. Like, hey guys, I'm around tonight. Who wants to do a quick bounty run? Right. And I like what he does. He's basing them off of comic book villains usually, or some kind of, supernatural villain. Mm-hmm. And the one you were in with me was basically Magneto.
Yes. Yeah. There was some sort of workshop that we ended up going to, and when we showed up, we triggered some sort of alarm by walking through something or touching something, and it activated a bunch of mechanical hands that were on the ground.
Oh yeah.
So that was kind of fun. We fought those out, and we traversed an area with some heavy winds. We had to figure out, there was we went upstairs. There was a chamber that had needed to have electricity run through it or something, or there was water involved.
There's wind and water. Yeah.
And then we got into the final battle, and it was, like you said, a character designed sort of after Magneto, and I think the token actually was like exactly Magneto. Like, you know, it wasn't subtle.
Not at all. Yeah. I did like the flavor of it. We were in a big room that this guy could like kind of turn on different fans, and then there was a lot of metal in the room. He could throw it at you if he really wanted to, and levitate people based off of the metal, and that was all rather fun and very on flavor. I believe I was playing Kelly,
yes.
My fighter, and you were Fume. Mm-hmm. There was Camillo, who is now Camillo instead of Camilla. Right. He's gone through some changes, you know, like you do. You know, and then there was Milo.
Yep, Milo was in there, and then Noah Loss. The Blade Singer.
Yes, and it was great. That was a lot of fun. You know, it was one of these quicker games, just this one big battle. I remember basically trying to run right at the guy. Didn't always go so well for me. He knocked me down to the floor.
Yeah, well, it was a big room, and there was a lot of stairs and bridges and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some sort of robots or something on the.
Oh yes, he had some constructs, some like robot constructs. Yeah. They're basically sentinels.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. You know.
But yeah, it was a fun game, little game. Like you said, it was a bounty game, so it was pretty controlled.
Talk about this game a little bit. And another reason why I love Fume, because when I play with Fume, you play him so well, and your flavor is very well done. I know you said you didn't have a lot you could do to him. You were trying to mind fuck him, basically.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But he had his helmet on, which is a typical Magneto trait. But the best part is Fume gets the last hit on this guy. You're standing right next to him, so you decide to shock and grasp him.
Well, yeah, but what had happened earlier was I tried to use these enchantments.
Yes.
And the one of them like was I can't remember. It's called like hypnotic gaze. And basically, it's a staring contest. And you know, like so, as long as you hold this gaze with the other creature, then both of you are basically stuck where you are. So he would be incapacitated, and I can't do anything else with my action. But he had this helmet on, so he kept saving. So I was like, staring contest, you and me. And then it was like, no, you know, I'm immune to that effect. And then so I kept trying to take off the helmet, and you know, Fume's not a big strong guy, so it was you know, he couldn't get anything done. So eventually I just said, all right, I'm just going to use my spells. So I used shock and grasp to hit him, and Varric said, how do you want to kill him? And so I said, I reach out and I jam my thumb and my middle finger into his eyes and zap him with shock and grasp and whisper, you should have done a staring contest.
Yeah, and I just fucking love that. I think that was so good, flavor-wise. That's my biggest problem. I always find it like, you know, I fall into the mechanics, like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Like, you know, I don't flavor it as well as I think some of you and some others do, and I really like that. I'm trying to work that into my characters more.
Yeah, well, and some guys are easier. Like, I think one of the things with Fume is that because I built him not from an idea of, oh, I want my character to, you know, have these abilities, and, you know, oh, this is a cool interplay between, you know, skills that make him stronger. It was more, I know what the character is, you know, that his thing is about perfumes and potions and that sort of thing. And so just like diving into that, I think makes it easier to, you know, to say, oh, then I'm going to take spells, you know, that maybe I wouldn't normally take, but like grease or color spray or,
right,
you know, these things that have this other effect, you know, that like play into I have to be able to flavor it in order to take the ability.
Right. Totally makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, it makes it so that when you get into those high level, grim jester, super murder games, like, you're pretty scared, but, you have some fun times along the way.
Which is what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's so we'll go in order here to kind of stay with just keep things organized. The next game was run on September 15th. 16th.
Okay.
16th, I think. It's called Pestilence. The runner of the game was Brandon. And I was not in this game, but once again, you were a participant.
Yes.
So give us a rundown. Let us know what happened.
Okay, so Pestilence was another higher level game. This was after Popo had his little, meltdown or whatever you want to call it. He's not feeling too well, so he's not going to play. We had the celebration. Oh, that's good and dandy. And part of me, with a player, I really wanted to play. And even though being a higher level game, I was like, I'll play, but I'm not bringing Popo. I'm going to bring Kelly. So if it's not a game for that range, I'm still going to bring Kelly. And Brandon was completely okay with it. Just said that it might be hard for her. But, I think Kelly is rather sturdy. I was quite okay with taking her along. So it was a little bit higher level game. There was, let's see, who else was there? So Malachi was there. Larissa, who I think is the highest level of all the characters right now. And then Roast was there. That's correct.
You're asking me?
And no, I'm thinking. I didn't actually look it up. Well, you looked up. Do you remember who signed up as well?
Well, it looks
I'm missing?
like 9 people signed up. So
oh, that's true. That's true.
So
Roast was there for sure.
The sign-ups were Roast, Malachi, Asul, Hickstra. I signed up.
Oh, okay. So Hickstra was there as well. Yes, that's who was there as well. So Hickstra, the long return of James, who had hadn't played a game in a very long.
Played in like 6 months or something.
Yeah, so it was good to have him back as well. So that's who else was there. And it basically turns out
Vera is also on here?
I don't think Vera was there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just the Hickstra, Roast, me, Larissa, and Malachi.
Okay.
So it turns out we all met up. There was some Pestilence and some Dryad Grove or something like that. So we went to the Grove, ended up talking to some people. Their guardian protector had been missing, and ever since then there'd been like this black gooey stuff in the place of what should be awesome dryadness and tree sap and stuff like that. We made some jokes about, trees releasing fluids like you do.
Yeah.
And other than that, we were basically went on our way to try to find this guardian, what had happened to it. We went along, and we ended up finding the main battle. I don't honestly remember everything. You have a really good memory. You're like going on every detail about that mission you were on. I was like, man, I don't remember everything. We ended up going to the main battle, and we get to find the Guardian Protector, who has like who's basically turned black and has like a thing in its heart. Oh, is that a well, by the way? That was kind of interesting, because we get to this well, and I think someone threw, like you do, inevitably, someone throws like a rock or something in the well, and that's what brought about this guardian and this other grim lich or something that was also, in our minds, probably the cause of all this. Mm-hmm. We're thinking that if we can try to maybe save the guardian, and it was not a lich, it was one of those, like, it was a spirit of sorts.
Okay.
I'm blanking on the name, but kind of like it's definitely incorporeal, like you could see through it a little bit. And because I remember Rose cast like stone shape or stone wall to like kind of like encapsulate it, and then Brandon's like, next turn she just kind of goes through it. So, but it was a good effort. It was definitely an interesting fight though, because they were spellcasters, so they had a lot they could do, including casting like every round, like on the 20 had like a layer effect, and it could do interesting things. One of them was it cast like basically a fog cloud, so like no one could really see. So now we all have to get close, but they had like teleporting abilities, much like Misty Steps and things like that. So everything, there was a storm, so there was like difficult terrain, so it was hard to get around. So this was a bit of a challenge for Kelly, who is just a martial class, doesn't have a lot of abilities to help herself get places or do anything crazy like that.
Yeah, right.
And it was difficult for Hickstra, who's also martial and ranged, because if you can't see, you're not going to be able to hit things.
Right.
So that was all interesting. What made it more interesting is that along the way, these creatures we did fight, which were like bears and things like that, just natural, would have been more natural, but they were infected by this pestilence. They could do different things to like basically infect us or poison us. And you got different kinds of poisons on you. And depending on what this... they rolled on like this poison, there's like 1 through 4, 1 through 5, or 1 through 6, whatever it was. You got a different effect. So one could be confusion every round. Right. So that's what happened to Larissa. So Larissa had basically confusion on her, the highest character in the game, and every round she had to roll to see what happened, and she kept rolling nothing. Right. So she just did nothing for many rounds, and I know that can be very frustrating.
Yes.
To the player. So that felt a little bit bad. But then again, that happens to lots of us. Mm-hmm. We were given some antidotes, which some of us had used already because we got poisoned earlier.
Right.
But we were trying to save one because we thought that maybe that could be the thing to cure this guardian. Don't think we ended up using it on the guardian. Well, I know we didn't use it on the guardian. I think what happened was we got Larissa finally out of her confusion. I know I had to use 2, I think, on Kelly, because she got one that like hurt her strength, and at the time she was very strength based, so it would not have gone well for her. Also, she might have been blinded. There was all these different kinds of effects you got from these different poisons based on, and then you could get multiple. So I had like 2 or 3 on me at one time.
Right.
So it was crazy. But anywho, so what happened? Everyone kind of we got the wispy spirit dead. And we had this guardian left to take care of. So Malachi came up with an idea that since this necrotic, pestilent force is taking over her, kind of like a disease, he was going to cast heal on the guardian.
Okay. And
see if it could heal this, disease or this pestilence, whatever. Right. And I know, at the time I was like, that may or may not work, but whatever, do what you got to do, right? And I know that Brandon did not have that in mind as a way to take care of this, but kudos to Brandon as a good DM thinking like that's like really ingenious way for a character to try to combat this. He had him roll to see, I think, how if he could like persuade the guy to like take it, or like to basically make sure it actually worked. Because normally you don't have to roll over heal, obviously.
Yeah, right.
And then
not even the hit points.
Correct. It's just 70 hit points or whatever. And then so he rolled and he rolled well. And so Brandon's like, okay, yes, you'll see that this black pestilence like leaves his body, and he basically falls over dead and has like a hole in the middle of him where something should be, basically. Right. The heart of the guardian or something like that. And that ended the battle portion. We spent some time, I know, looking in this well to see if you could find anything like the thing that's missing from the heart or whatever. I think we did see 2 marks on the neck of the guardian. So we think there's like a vampire, like a vampire lord around that may be causing this, but we did not fight a vampire. It's clearly a part 1 of 2 or 3 or 4 mission kind of thing coming from Brandon.
Gotcha.
So
there'll be more coming from whatever this.
Correct. And we did end up getting the Guardian back to the Dryads, in its whatever shape it is. And they're like, they're sad, obviously, but they're like, hey, the Guardian can come from anything. So even though this is like the body, a lifeless body of the Guardian, they can maybe get another one somehow or something like that. Magic is magic.
Yeah, right.
So, but that was the game, and it was fun. And it was good to see Hickstra back, like I said. I like seeing Jane play. And Brandon's always does a good job DMing. And like I said, he rolls with it, just much like Malachi did in that one game, and most DMs have to do. You kind of have to, players try to do something different and fun. You're like, oh yeah, let's go for it. Let's see what happens.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that a thing to keep in mind is, when you're playing D&D, you're not really playing against like the DM. Like everybody's sort of playing on the same side, trying to make a fun, funny, interesting, dramatic story happen.
Right.
So, DMing is a lot harder because you have to account for the entire world and every other character. but yeah, if you can, if you can react to interesting things that the players do and have the world react in interesting ways, that's what you want out of a DM.
Yeah, and so I think that is the biggest key to remember, is that fun is the ultimate objective for everyone. So,
cool. So that's Pestilence. I'm looking. There was another bounty quest. It says Nefarious Deeds 3. It looks like you were in also.
I was. This is another one of Eric's quick hitters. Bounty quests last about 2.5 hours, based off of villains. And this one was basically Snark, Cold. That's a DC, I think, but I can't remember the name of the actual character. Captain Cold is the villain. It's named after. I know he's been on TV a lot recently in the Arrowverse. And some of those shows on WB or whatever.
So just to verify, Captain Cold completely different from Mr. Freeze, who is also in the DC universe.
That is correct. Okay, that is correct. Sure. Yeah. And because also they're trying to play him this way too. Snark is not necessarily a bad guy. I think even in one of the shows, he's like on a team of people trying to actually do good. Okay. Like, he doesn't kill things. He's just a thief. He steals things for whatever reason, good or bad. We've all been there. I mean, who hasn't stolen something?
Okay, moving on.
For Joe, it's hearts. Joe steals hearts.
Yes, that's my one weakness, is I can't stop stealing hearts.
Yeah, and I don't mean like women. I mean literally, you go to their house and you steal hearts. Yeah. Okay. Moving on.
I have the basement is very full of. Never mind. Continue.
So this is a lower level game. In fact, I had in the meantime actually retired Popo, and came into this mission with my brand new level 3 character. We had a couple level 3s, level 4s, and I think Zenri, who is 5 or 6, maybe he was 5 at the time. I'm not sure. Anywho, so we went on this mission, and Zenri, me, who else was there? I know James was there on his new character, Caduceus, how you pronounce that?
Caduceus, yeah.
Yeah, Caduceus.
Brandon played a Mark.
Yes, Brandon was a Mark. Yes. Mark was interesting too. His name was Bez, B-E-Z. Mm-hmm. And if you recall, Brandon's character Leon has a familiar whose name is Zeb, yeah. Z-B. So basically, I think it was kind of interesting. Brandon's Mark, who, for those who don't know, Marks are characters who play in games but don't get any experience. They're just there to fill out a roster. Bez was the personification of Zeb as a character, which was interesting. So he's like the cousin of Zeb and whatnot. So it was kind of fun. But yeah, it was good. Good game. Like I said, we had some trials to try to find this guy who's gotten loose. It's basically like a prison break. A couple months ago, a prison break happened. A bunch of people were loose, and we're trying to find them basically one at a time. We get these bounties for people to find. Right. And so we had a bounty for this one, and we had to do some interesting things. Go across as we get closer to what we think is this guy, since we know he has very good cold magic and very strong cold magic, we find like a icy river that has very cold waters that's not quite frozen over, but has a couple spots frozen over. We have to get across that using whatever means we can, and I definitely fell in the water. I failed like a deck save to like land on the ice, so I slipped and fell in the water and got exhaustion from being in the cold water, because I also failed my con check because I'm a level 3 sorcerer. If I didn't mention that, my new character is a sorcerer again. But much different than Popo.
Well, he's down 14 levels, so that's part of it.
Also, not draconic, and also not very blastery. He's more of a support control character.
Cool.
Because that's just it. People always talk about, fighters or so. You can make fighters 10 different ways. You can make sorcerers 10 different ways too, or really any class. Yeah. It's just a matter of what you actually plan on doing with it. So we finally get to this cave where we're thinking we're rest after this exhaustion and after this river battle. We're thinking, hey, there's a cave over there. Maybe we can chill. Whoa, that was not pun not intended. And we get there and we find that the entrance to the cave is a wall of ice. Okay, maybe this won't be a cave we can chill in. So we're trying to figure out how to get through. We're casting some fire bolts, and people are throwing things at this wall of ice to try to get through it. Nothing's really working. Clearly, we would need something very, very much stronger than what we as a team were capable of doing. Zenri, I think, flew up somehow. You may have flight or levitation is what he has.
Yeah.
And he flew up a little bit and saw a ledge above the wall, and there's a small hole. And we thought, okay, let's go through there to get into this cave. So that's what we did. My character, I know, does not have dark vision. Most of the other characters did, except for maybe Caduceus.
Yeah.
So we did have
I believe.
Right. So we did have a torch going, or someone cast dancing lights or something. But we wanted to try to surprise them a little bit. But we're not good at that. I don't think anyone, except for an occasional person, is very good at surprising people.
Yeah.
So Zenri went through the little cave opening, and he took lead to go first. And as soon as he popped his head out there, they're throwing like ice rays or something up at us, and our surprise was not long lasting. So now we have to go through this tiny cave opening, basically one at a time, on a sheet of ice. So it's difficult terrain, and we're slipping and falling. It made it pretty difficult, but eventually we did get in. We find there's like 3 or 4 of this guy, so there's clearly some kind of magic making copies of himself all over the place. And also, when Zenri threw a fireball into this cave, he basically exploded out of these icicles some tiny ice beings. I'm not even 100% sure what they were. They were almost like little tiny mini dragon drakes, because they did, I think, have a sort of breath weapon. And that was kind of cool, but they weren't very strong. You know, we were lower level. We finally all get in. There was so many dice roll, because every time this guy did his cold magic, we'd have to roll dice, and then we're all mostly casters. So every time we're trying to hurt this guy, he's rolling dice. I just remember a lot of dice were rolled. And again, we try to take this guy because these are bounties. You know, we don't need to kill these people. And then, in fact, if we bring him back alive, I think a lot of time there is a bonus. Again, we failed miserably at keeping someone alive. We are terrible as a guild at that. So, yes, we did eventually take care of him. We tried at first. We did a little bit of talking, I think, trying to be like, hey, listen, like, we don't need to kill you. We'll just take it back. But he was not going back to prison either. He was not having any of that. He just wanted to be let free. And we're like, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So we get him back, get some cool items as well. It's cold-related stuff that was kind of interesting. And yeah, that was it.
Cool. Yeah, I like the idea that they're based off of these characters, because if you know them, that gives you like an extra layer of like, oh, that's a cool thing that, you know, plays into it. Like the Magneto thing. Obviously, Magneto's is a bigger character than Captain Cold.
Yes.
But
it's kind of like when you're watching a movie or whatever, or a TV show, and you've read the book it's based on, and they throw a little like Easter egg for the people who know about the book or whatever.
Right. Yeah,
it's kind of like that. It's fun.
Yeah. Cool. So we got one more game in September. The game was this was a game I ran, and I decided to not be creative with the title. The title was called The Egg Dungeon, and the goal was to find an egg that's in a dungeon.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes you just gotta attack it head on. The participants of the game were Caduceus, the aforementioned new character that Jane built, a merc run by Roast named Mr. Miller. There was Gareth. It was a new character created by Vera, and who was the other guy? I had it written down here. It was Fang, which is Varric / Larissa's lowest level character. Mm-hmm. He's a barbarian. Like I said, the mission was pretty straightforward. I kind of fast forward them into a jungle, and they go around searching for this location where a bunch of adventurers have disappeared, looking for this lavish cobalt egg. And they eventually find an entrance that has some vines sort of grown over it. They open it up, they walk down the stairs, and they're super, super cautious, which is to their benefit because they find a trap that would have slid them down a long ramp passageway down into a pit with spikes. So the fact that they were slow and cautious may have saved lives. It was intended to be a very dangerous opening salvo trap, but they managed to avoid it.
It's good.
They used a piton or python. I don't know how you say it.
I say piton.
Yeah, any of those is acceptable.
I say piton
to brace the step that was the trigger for the trap, which comes into play later. They make their way down, and they encounter some doors that have, I don't remember exactly what the distinctions were, but it was basically flight, strength, flight, blood, and mind. And as they're sort of poking around, they hear some voices around the corner. They go around the corner, poke around, and they find a group of these missing adventurers who are just kind of sitting around a table playing cards, hanging out. I had a lot of fun voicing these guys as kind of dopes, and it had them sort of just confused about everything. It was a real challenge for me to play a dumb character because I'm so smart.
Okay, I love that.
But no, it was a lot of fun. We had some good laughs as they were trying to interact. And basically, they said that they had adventurers with them who had gone through these doors, and then they'd never seen them again. So they were sort of just waiting, assuming that these other adventurers would be coming back through, which hadn't, and it had been over a month since this had happened. They'd just been sitting around waiting in this dungeon. So eventually, the group all goes through the door to the mind room, and in the mind room, there's some text that says, they go through the door, they come into the room, and there's two doors on the opposite side of the room. And there's some text on a stone that says, one of the doors in this room is trapped. When you entered this room, an enchantment was placed in your mind that if you don't leave this room in 10 minutes, it will kill you. And so they spent some time investigating the doors, trying to decide which is which. Eventually, Gareth, I think, just grabbed the handle of one and disappeared. The rest of the group seemed, and I just sort of put him aside, to preserve the drama. And then the rest of the group continued to inspect things, and eventually, I believe, Mr. Miller threw a rock back at the door that they had come through, and there was an explosion. A zap of lightning as the rock hit that door, and they realized that when
that's not normal.
Well, and that the description said one of the doors in this room is trapped, and they're like, "Oh, it's the door we came in." And
that makes sense.
That's why. That's where we. So both of the doors that were on the other side were safe. So they ended up all touching the handle, disappearing, and eventually appearing on the other side. The doors on the other side had, in big, bold letters, just the word "beg," B-E-G. And they did some exploring. They found, in fact, another group of those adventurers who had sort of made camp on this side of those doors. And they said, we can't get through a door to the east. There's like a barrier that we can't get through. And then we've tried begging in front of those doors to the west. We haven't figured out anything. So we're just kind of stuck in here. And each of these groups had a druid with them. So they've just been eating good berries and waiting for something to happen.
That's awesome.
the adventurers, the adventuring party from our group is the something that happens. They investigate a couple of traps. One of them was a magnetic sort of gravity trap that they were able to avoid just by staying low to the ground. And then they came into a large room that had 4 braziers. 2 of them were brightly illuminated with fire. 2 of them were not. And they sort of looked around trying to figure out what was going on. There was a magical barrier to the east, and there was a xylophone in the room. They did some looking around, couldn't really find anything specific. They ended up going back to look around some of the rest of the dungeon. When they did, kind of from behind, they heard that other adventuring group set upon. And there was an encounter where they fought 2 large fire elementals. They were able to succeed in this battle. And it turns out that those 2 braziers that were lit were actually living fire elementals. So when they came back in the room, those braziers were no longer lit and the barrier was down. On the other side of the barrier, there was a well. They went down the well, and there was a pool of water at the bottom, which ramped up out into an area that did not have water. And in this area, there were 2 chests, 2 large chests, as well as an altar that had a giant cobalt egg upon it. The group investigated the chests, expecting some sort of traps. They found none. They eventually, one of the chests had a bunch of treasure in it. The other one was empty. Eventually, they pulled the egg into the empty chest. And when they did that, they noticed, I believe Caduceus was the first to notice, that the water level seemed to be rising from that pool of water, kind of up the ramp. It was getting deeper, covering the floor and continuing to grow. So they scurried, using some, I believe, enhance ability on Feng, who's already a pretty strong guy, so he had advantage,
right,
and a beefy spell, so he was able to use his strength to move around. They did find that the chest that had the egg inside it would float, no problem. It was, basically as light as a feather. But the other one was a normal, very heavy chest in water. So they were able to basically outpace the water as they climbed up the well very quickly. They grabbed the surviving adventurers from the party, and when they got to the door, they saw the sign that said "beg," and at some point, I don't remember who exactly it was. I think it was Mr. Miller, or it may have been Gareth. Gareth is the one who took the xylophone. But basically, he said, "Oh, BEG are all notes." So he played BEG on the xylophone, and the door opened and yielded for the group to be able to.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. They gave a heads up to the guys who were in the other room, waiting, saying that because as this is all going on, the water is continuing to fill this dungeon. They say, "Oh, you should come up. There's this back exit. There's no trap." Because apparently they had lost one of their adventuring party in the trap that was in the entrance that they had gone up. They did not trust the adventuring party, I guess. So they went back up the way they had come. And they came to that step and began to think that maybe the Python wasn't going to necessarily hold with these incredibly heavy treasure chests that they were carrying. So there was a lot of trying to use abilities and trying to cooperatively move the treasure chests. But eventually they were able to get everything up the stairs, past the trapped step, and out. The water filled the entire dungeon and actually came up to the doorway that they exited, and kind of built up as if there was like a barrier at that doorway, filled it all the way up, and then eventually cascaded back down. And then they met those adventurers who had apparently come from the back exit, and they say, "Hey, well, it's good you're okay. I don't know why you went up the more dangerous way." And that was it. That was the adventure.
Well, it's good. I think that's interesting too. I find it myself as a DM. I don't have a great ability of like finding creative traps and things like that. And maybe you found it online, maybe you didn't. But it's kind of interesting to find like, different traps like musical notes and like stuff like that.
Yeah, but it was a fun adventure. Everybody seemed hopefully to have a good time. And yeah, it was overall a good way for me to wrap up my September with West Seas Guild games. Yeah.
And there's something I noticed in that is that I didn't run a game in September.
You sure didn't, you son of a bitch.
And I think that's what, I think a lot of us will have to try to, do something for whatever reason. We might be slacking. Let's work harder to at least do like a game a month at the very least. We have at least like 8 to 9 people that would quote unquote run games or have run games. Yeah, nice if we get.
Yeah, and obviously
if we got one.
Sure, sorry. I was going to say, obviously people have stuff going on. There's going to be ebb and flow. But the more games that run, the more opportunities people have to play. So it's good to, if we can run games, it's good to do it.
And if we missed anyone's game from September, it's Joe's fault.
It is. You can call that my fault, yes. Okay, so moving on to sort of wrap up the September in the guild. The last thing that we're going to talk about is just the auction that we ran. This was a robust auction because of the massive full guild dragon fight that I ran.
Yes,
which is a colossal undertaking, but I enjoyed playing it, and I think it went okay.
Yes, it went well.
But yeah, we part of that was that a big dump of items was offered into the
a big dragon horde or something.
Yeah, and one of the things we found, I'm not going to go into, we all know that items were purchased, but one of the things we found was that we had, and this is with no blame or anything,
right?
But we had some,
yeah,
right, because it was the system. The system was the system. But we had a couple of auction snipes at the end. And just as I sort of looked at it and thought about it and talked to Nick, among other people, we just kind of decided it's not fun to lose out on an item, that you think you're going to get through auction sniping. Like any of us who has bid on an item on eBay and seen, with 8 minutes left, we're the high bid, and it's like, oh, that's cool. I'm really looking forward to owning that, D&D book or that football jersey or whatever it is you're buying. And then with 40 seconds left, somebody snipes in, and you're like, ah, damn it. And then you up your bid, and then somebody still beats you with like 8 seconds left. It's just not a good feeling. Again, mostly talking to Nick, but kind of running it by some other folks in the guild. We decided to change our auction system. Instead of using a flat 10-day auction period, we're going to have like a roughly 5-day auction period. But anytime there's a bid, it's going to extend the auction by 48 hours.
On that item.
Right, on that item, not on every item. So the idea is just to like prevent any sort of sniping from going on, and everybody can just sort of be more upfront with, hey, I want this item. This is what I'm willing to pay for it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea. The more you think about it, it's like, it's hard to always think about everything, I guess. But, the more you think about it, this happens. It's not the first time snipes have happened either, you know what I mean?
Right.
But even if they don't happen, it's like you can't fully expect people, because we do have people in the guild from all over the world. there's an auction end time, say it's 7 a.m. here. Well, it might be like, the middle of the night for some people. You can't expect them to be awake and try to make counter bids or any of that stuff, or even just kind of like be awake to pay attention to it. In this way, it's like no stress, because that's what the guild's all about, is fun, no stress. Like, we're not trying to like make people feel bad about things here.
Yeah.
Not to mention that some of these items should sell for a lot more, and I think people aren't having bids because they're like, well, I'll just wait until the end, and then I'll bid it at the end.
Right.
Because some of these items probably should go for a little bit more than they have been going.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, we have an odd economy.
But that's true.
But yeah.
I mean, any item that like two people with a lot of money go for will go for a lot, regardless of how much it should go for. And vice versa. If only one person wants it, it's not going to go for anything.
Right. Although we do use the
good minimums, yeah.
Yeah, the good minimums.
There is one thing I would like to, because this is all experimental, like this is the first month we've done it this way.
Yes.
I do think 48 hours might even be too much. I think 24 hours should be enough. If there's nothing you care about, I think 24 hours is enough. So like, you know what, it's time for 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. It's almost done right now. I think that tomorrow afternoon would be when the last item would expire. The reason I think 48, and maybe I would even do 36, except 36 is harder to, you guys say, oh, is that AM or PM, whatever, whereas if it's 48, it's just 2 days later. The reason is because I know that sometimes I have a day where I'm just worthless the whole day for whatever reason. If it's a busy day at work
day,
or whatever.
You've had a day like that?
I have like a month like that.
Just kidding.
But I can't do 48 weeks of
yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, sometimes you just have a day where you wake up and you're busy all day, and then you go to sleep because you're exhausted at the end of the day. I feel like 48 hours is a good.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. Honestly, it's probably going to make the auction still last less time than it did if it was the full 10 days.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it should still be, unless there's an item that people really go back and forth on a lot.
Yeah.
But no, I think. I mean, I definitely think no matter what, this is better. And then if there are ways to improve on it, we can keep looking.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. I do like the change. Overall, I think it'll be nothing but good.
Right. Cool. Okay. That is the end of episode 1 of the West Seas Guild podcast. I think this is like a 10-hour podcast. So so hopefully you battened down. Maybe I'll add an intro that says, hey, by the way, this is going to take fucking forever.
No, it's like 2 hours maybe, and that's about right for most podcasts, right? I don't listen to a lot.
That's true. And then there's
I don't have ears.
There was a part that I'm going to edit out. So this part's going to be ridiculous when I say that I edited out that part, because we're going to say I don't know anything about that.
Exactly. But before we do end, I just want to say, Joe, as leader of the West Seas Guild and basically in charge of everything and running everything, thank you, because without you, this would not be around probably. And we all enjoy it. We all spend time doing it, and we've made a lot of friends playing these games. So, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for playing, man. I mean, it's, I can, like I said, I like making those lists, but, if I don't have people to play games with, then making that list is kind of stupid. I mean, I would still do. I love making lists.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it.
But I mean, I made my top 100 movies list with no prompt. I put every Marvel movie in order of preference with no prompt, no discussion.
Well, we talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think we did it on a blog. Anyway, this podcast.
We're editing this part out.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to throw on some outro music. But thanks for listening, and we will be back in October. I guess it's October now. We'll be back in November with information about October. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Nick, thanks for being on.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Oh, God. All right. See ya.